Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my show Rocket Monday. In today's episode we're going to take a look at the new player that has re-emerged in our market, that is Virgin Galactic. So let's dive right into it. Now first thing you have to understand about Virgin Galactic, it's a sub company of Virgin Group. Virgin Group have a lot of things. Many of you are familiar with Virgin Airlines. Basically think of it that way. It's basically a small company in a larger company. Now this whole idea of space tourism is a dream of Richard Branson. It's basically Elon Musk. Now this is an old company. To be frank, it was created in 2004. Basically before SpaceX became prominent. Now, to give you a context of it, what kind of history we are talking about here is that they're not targeting for satellites, they're not targeting for space, they're targeting for tourism. So to make their dreams more attainable, what they did is basically they are targeting what we call suborbital flights. Basically they're going like this. They're not orbiting Earth, they simply go and they come down. Basically it's a ballistic trajectory, it's not an orbital trajectory. So, and it does not even cross properly that 100 kilometer mark. They are trying to cross upwards of 120. They can do it, it's just they haven't done it properly yet. So that's their target. Do not expect that their vehicle will carry you to orbit and put you in complete circular orbit and then bring you back. It will be only a very short while, a suborbital system. Now how they gonna achieve this is very simple. They're gonna have what we call air launched rocket. Basically, if you're familiar with rockets, you must be familiar with the fact that nozzles have what we call efficiency based on atmospheric pressure. So basically the nozzle that will work flawlessly in sea level will not work that well when you are at higher altitude. Now the nozzle that will work flawlessly in vacuum will not work that good in sea level. So there is generally engineers come up with a compromise, or they end up creating what we call stages. So this is equivalent of that. Instead of having first rocket stage, it has first aircraft stage. Now this aircraft is a simple aircraft, obviously modified. It goes up to 50,000 feet or whatever they can manage. Basically they want to send it as fast, as high up as possible. Be mindful, subsonic, it's not a supersonic system. Height can be adjusted, but they cannot go supersonic. This craft is not designed for supersonic shockwaves. So this is basically like the first stage of the rocket. Now they take off from a runway like any aircraft. They run on completely independent system. That's why I'm calling this a stage. It's not a complete system, it's a completely different stage. Then they fire their rockets. Now if you want to get a context of this, what I'm showing you here, it's basically Spaceship 1. Now this was completed in 20 May 2003. So if you're like, okay, that's a long back, well yes, it's an old system. So how does this whole magical things work? Now if you are familiar with a liquid fueled rocket, you must be familiar with the fact that they don't like to be basically shaken around. So how you gonna have a rocket that is going from basically horizontal to vertical? So to bypass that problem and other also problems, they're gonna use what we call hybrid rocket motor. What does that mean? Very simple. Take space shuttle and mix it together. Now space shuttle have both engines. Basically it has liquid engines, that is called space shuttle main engine, and then it has solid booster. So you take the solid booster, and instead of providing it its own inbuilt oxygen, like the powder that is used in solid rocket motors are generally containing oxygen itself. They are removing that oxygen. It's like, okay, just put the fuel aspect of it and let's remove the oxidizer so they can control it. So they are getting best of both worlds. The oxidizer is allowing them to control, which many of you are familiar with solid rocket booster. They know it has no controllable factors. Here they're taking the simplicity, reliability of SRB. They're putting the SRB, then they're putting the liquid fuel. Now in earlier days, the fuel, basically the oxidizer was nitrous oxide. Why? It's non-cryogenic. It does not give you the best specific impulse, but it is very good. Non-cryogenic simply means you can store it in a normal tank, and it does give you a tangible performance. So early stages use that. So this rocket engine that you are seeing, basically think of it that way. It has a SRB here. Now SRB will not burn. Normal SRB will burn itself. This will not burn because it has a two-part system. So SRB is in the this assembly, and then there is a fuel tank. The fuel tank is generally either liquid oxygen or nitrous oxide. For higher performance, they are going for liquid oxygen. So this liquid oxygen goes there, oxidizes the fuel, solid fuel that is there, and boom, you got your rocket. This simplifies their operation, gives them control, is cheaper than completely, they don't have to have fancy turbocharger and expensive things like that. So this is cheaper. This is, I told you, like best of both worlds. However, be mindful, this is the reason why they can't go full orbital. This is not a very powerful system. This is not like, Raptor engine or like, Vulcan engines. This is a puny engine, comparatively speaking. So they take the plane as high as they can go, roughly around 30 to 50,000 feet is their target, and then they launch the second system. Because it's a solid grain system, they don't have to do completely anti-slosh buckling that they need for liquid fuel system. They can easily manage it. So this is how they work. The first stage is a plane that completely wears off, and it's non-destructive. So the wearing off, that doesn't mean you are discarding it. It will simply come back. It's a completely reuse of first stage, and then they fire the second, which is also reusable. So be mindful, if this is that old, like 2003, man, that's old, man. What happened? It's like basically when they first came out, and their idea was a maiden flight would be around 2009 and they will start selling tickets at 2012. So let's just say that didn't happen. Now it also suffered a fatality. Now that fatality is completely a human error fatality. It's not that a craft was wrong or anything like that. So what they are doing in this craft is, going up is one thing, coming back down without burning up is another thing. Now generally space shuttle relies on heat shields, and new SpaceX rockets will rely on active cooling of some sort or stainless steel. So in those sort of scenario, you have a very big barrier to protect you against the heat. They do not possess such a thing because their craft is very light. So what they rely on is atmosphere itself to slow down. So if you are familiar with this fin, when it's coming down, when it's going into orbit, the fin folds up. Now that increases the drag dramatically. However, you must open it at precise time. If you open it too early, it will not do anything. If you open it too late, it will break apart. Happened. So fatality did occur. Now be mindful, SpaceX have many rockets blown up, but they do not possess any fatality. This does possess a fatality. So delay wise, it's well, it puts Elon Musk timeline into perspective. Basically, he was very optimistic, and he even built airports for this. Like, airport is already done with flight controllers and traffic system, everything done. It's just the vehicle is far more complex than they thought. Now the complexity of this is not complex in terms of, okay, it's a new thing. They knew how to build it. It's just making it safe enough. Basically, human rating is not something easy. And problem with basically aviation industry is how they're gonna rate it. This is not a spacecraft, proper spacecraft, so they cannot rate it as spacecraft. This is going higher than any commercial airlines. How they're gonna rate it? So it's a very chicken and egg situation. How are you gonna rate it and how are you gonna make it safe enough? So this is what's causing the delay. And not to mention the failure actually kind of illustrated the fact that he was very optimistic in the early days, like, oh, it's going to be as safe as modern airlines. Many people are not familiar with the fact that airlines have been flying for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours in the air. That's why it's so safe now. At the early stage it wasn't. So this system that you're going to just take off, of course, let's say your first stage is 100% safe because it is a normal plane. What about the second stage? This is the untested part. And see, this happened because of a human error. So this kind of shook faith a little bit. And be mindful, he many times have said that he wanted to be like Elon Musk, but that dream came to be true. So what we can expect in the future. Now be mindful, when they originally intended, this is the Virgin Spaceship 2, basically the Spaceship 1 went to the space, but it was only for one person. They want to send upwards of 8 people, 2 pilots and 6 passengers. So they have a bigger craft, which is this, and they're gonna send it to as high as they can send it, and then launch the second stage, which will take you to space. Now this whole idea at the early stages was mind-boggling. However, today it's not so, simply because if they had delivered on their proper timeline, they would have been like leaps and bounds ahead of everyone. However, today they have a big competitor, what we call Blue Origin, because it's both of them are providing the same service. I'm not going into SpaceX because SpaceX is not targeting what we call cheap space access. They can sell you access to the moon, but that's expensive. So this is kind of medium tier. This is something that most people should be able to afford. Who can afford to go to Europe for vacation, they should be able to afford this. So now they have 2 competition. Now this system is much simpler. This has progressed like phenomenally well, and it hasn't had any crashes or things of that nature. So, and not to mention the engines that they are using have been clarified for military projects. So this is progressing very well. So these two are competing directly head to head, and there are some other companies that may be coming up. I have heard rumors about them, but I cannot be certain about them. However, the road ahead for Virgin Galactic is not clear, even though just recently, as of me making this video, they have achieved a very big milestone. The road ahead is not clear. A, it's way too expensive. B, it's way too delayed. C, because you have to mind, for even if the plane is cheap, even if the rocket is cheap, the R&D cost they have to recover because there are delays in the process. It's humongous. So that cost is the problem for them, not the craft is relatively cheap, but the R&D cost of decades that have went into it, it's expensive. So now, however, Blue Origin is also suffering through some setbacks simply because Jeff Bezos is getting the divorce. And be mindful, Blue Origin was Jeff Bezos' personal project, so to say. Now it does have what you call financial balancing system, so it's not like one person fails and it goes down, but it is relying on that. It's like it's early stage of SpaceX, where if Elon Musk died at that time, the SpaceX would have collapsed. It's like that. So the current estimates are like Jeff Bezos should lose around $4 billion because of the divorce. So let's see how it affects it, because it's not going to affect Amazon. Amazon have failsafe on top of failsafe on top of failsafe. This was a passion project. So how Blue Origin comes at the other end, maybe they will rush this project because this can give them what you call revenue source very quickly. This is a very quick, simple solution for them. So the road ahead is not easy. Let's just put it that way. So would I put my money on Virgin Galactic? No. It's way too late for now, because like, what are you offering? Like, this is a quick, simple system. This is a very complex system, and it is so expensive, not because this plane is expensive, plane that can be mass produced, but the fact that they had spent 10, 12, 30 years of like R&D going over, who's gonna pay for that? So as of now, as I'm talking to you, I am not very optimistic for Virgin Galactic, but I would like them to, succeed, because the more competition, better the pricing for us. So this was my presentation on Virgin Galactic. I hope you liked it or learned from it. In that case, please leave a like. If you didn't, don't worry about it. You can dislike it. I would urge you to leave a comment on my video, and please subscribe. Press the bell icon if you're free. And as always, thanks for watching.